But I'm I want to jump into this pretty quickly because Scott Page to me is one of the most fascinating guys I've ever met.
Wow. Wow.
And yes, we're going to talk about, his time with Toto and Supertramp and Pink Floyd, but I think what goes a little bit unrecognized is this guy is a beast of a business guy and an unbelievable entrepreneur. And he's been a serial tech entrepreneur for decades and decades. And he
Don't
is
say
a
that.
cutting
You're making
edge.
me old.
You're a cutting edge guy, my friend. Um, so the format is going to change a little bit today for you guys. So we're going to do our 30-30. So we'll do like a 30-minute. I'm going to do a 30-minute fireside chat with Scott. I've got a couple questions that I want to ask him. And then we're going to open it up for live Q&A. So normally you would put in the chat, hey, I have a question. And Kathy lets me know, but I don't know. Kathy's got like a pickleball game to go to or something like that, or I don't know what she has to do. Drink coconut juice or something. So she's going to be leaving us. So if you have a question for Scott when we get to the Q&A, just raise your hand. And if I don't see it, like if I don't see the order of people, then just ask your question. So we're going to kind of go a little bit rogue today. So I'm super excited. Before I ask my first question for Scott, Kathy, can you hit our introduction?
I don't fit in the box, I was born to stand out. Living life on my terms, I've erased all doubt. With passion in my heart and a spark in my eye. I'm the storm, I'm the lightning cutting through the sky. Welcome to the top where the fearless reign, where the dreamers build what the doubters disdain. I'm fierce, I'm bold, I'm the cream of the crop, bodacious and proud. Welcome to the top. Welcome to the top. Bodacious, audacious, no ceiling, no end. Loquacious, vivacious, where legends ascend. An outlier rising, no chains, no block. This is my moment. Welcome to the top.
Wow.
What'd you think, Scott? That's a
Wow.
decent
You
intro.
made me famous. You made me famous. That's
You're
awesome.
the
Thank you
man.
very much.
Dude, thanks for getting up early and thanks for doing this. I have had so much fun chatting with you over the last, year or so that we've known each other. And I just find you like so insanely fascinating. Um, so I'm going to start because this to me is like, if I don't ask some like rock and roll questions, this is like a band coming out. This is like you coming out and like you don't play Comfortably Numb or Money or whatever. Like people are going to be like, come on, I want that stuff. So we have to start with some music stuff and then we're going to get into the business side of things. So
Sounds good. Sounds good.
your dad was a fixture on the Lawrence Welk show and also on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, but you wanted to be an architect
Yeah.
and the co-founder of Toto and the drummer for Steely Dan and the Bee Gees kind of made you rethink things. Tell everybody kind of what happened in those early days.
Well, first of all, you're right. My father was on, I grew up on that television show, the Lawrence Welk Show. He was on there for 15 years. So I was around early television. My dad was a serial entrepreneur. We had boat businesses, lighting businesses, candy businesses. We had 26 donut shops at one time. My father was one of the developers, actually developed and co-created the wah wah pedal, the famous guitar pedal, and then the Studio Sound City. So I grew up in a musical family and definitely around entrepreneurship my whole time. That's why my love of business, I believe, is I was just in business all the time. But the whole thing with, that was Jeff Beccaro and David Page. I was a trumpet player. And I really didn't care about music much when I was growing up. I just did it because my dad said, it's a good thing to do. You can spend a little time, on the weekends playing some gigs. It'll be, better than maybe working in a gas station. You could do something like that. So I sort of played for fun. And I was, not very good, to be honest. I was studying to be an architect. I was working for a company called Audiodyne at the end of going into college, where I was a draftsman in this room. And I got in this band with Jeff Beccaro and David Page, who later became Toto. It was called Merciful Soul Band. And as a kid, we started playing. I was the second trumpet player. It was like a Chicago Blood, Sweat, and Tears style band. And all I remember was this. I would sit in my room all day and draw and drink coffee. And then I started playing in this band, and I noticed there were a lot of girls in the front row. And it completely changed me. I said, you know what? We were winning all the battle of the bands and all this stuff. So I said, I'm going to become a musician. So I completely flipped myself in college there, decided to, stop pursuing the career in architecture and that and become a musician. So I took my drafting skills because I was good with a pencil and pen. Those were the days before there were computers. And I became a music copyist. And that music copying kept me alive while I was studying. So I started studying like crazy, taking lessons from a lot of private lessons, and then playing with that band, Merciful Soul Band. And that really is what got me into the music business.
So Scott has stories upon stories upon stories upon stories. So I'm just going to pick a couple at random that I think are super fun that you and I have chatted about before. But so you almost did not join Pink Floyd, which I love this story. But David Gilmour apparently is a pretty good salesperson. So you did wind up joining Pink Floyd. You did in 1987. I think you played 199 shows when they were on that massive tour. Mm-hmm. Tell us about how in the world were you almost going to turn down the opportunity to join Pink Floyd?
Well, it started, I was playing in Supertramp first, and Dave Gilmour came and he was a guest on the album. He did play some solos. I got to know him. He ended up coming to a gig I was playing that night afterwards, after we played, we were in the studio. And then I was working at the time. I've been kind of, again, being sort of an inventor. I was working on putting together a project called Push Back the Walls, which was really about putting sound and picture together. So I was marrying zooming microphones with all these MIDI based tripod systems, all this stuff. So I was working on this project. Gilmour came and played on that album. I was telling him about this project I was working on. A couple weeks later, I did this big event at Guitar Center in Los Angeles where I had all the Tower of Power guys. I had Supertramp. I had Toto. I had a whole giant band there to basically shoot this show that I was doing with these zooming microphones and this whole new thing. And so Gilmour came to that show. And afterwards, he came down because Jeff Beccaro, the drummer, was also playing on it. And he was actually playing on the Floyd record that particular day that we were doing that show. And he said, I got to go because I'm doing this thing for Scott. So Gil came along that night, saw me do my thing, and then, called me up. I got a call a couple days later, and it's from Dave Gilmour to come put some solos on the Pink Floyd record. So I didn't think anything of it. I went and played and put some solos on the record. It was crazy cool, I guess, at the time. So I called my friend up, and actually what happened was I played on that record. And then a few days later, I get a call from Dave saying, hey, we loved what you did. Would you want to be interested in joining the band? And I said, let me think about it, Dave. Now, the reason I did that is I knew nothing about Pink Floyd. I knew zero. I had no idea, because as a saxophone player, I was studying saxophone. I was listening to Junior Walker and, a lot of the R&B stuff, but not really listening to sort of prog rock, progressive rock kind of stuff like that. So I call my friend up and I said, Dave, he calls me. I said, well, let me think about it, Dave. So I put the phone back down and I call my friend up and I go, hey, buddy, buddy Danny. So I said, hey, Dan, I just got, I went and played on this Pink Floyd record. He said, you played on a Pink Floyd record? I said, yeah, I went to put some solos on the record and stuff. And then I got a call from the guitar guy, this English guitar player, to come join the band. He says, Dave Gilmour called you to come play in the band? I said, yeah. And he says, dude, you got to do that gig. And I said, I don't know anything about Pink Floyd at the time. And I was in the middle of my project. So that night I ended up going to Tower Records because it was open 24/7 back in the days, picked up some Pink Floyd records, came back and listened to them and stuff and thought, okay, I think I'll do this. So I called Dave and next thing I know, I did the gig. But I honestly, God, I knew nothing about Pink Floyd. I knew nothing about Pink Floyd when I went in and played on the record. I had no idea what an incredible piece of history, rock history music that was at the time. So I almost turned it down because I was working on my project. I am so thankful I did not turn that gig down. That changed my life. There's no question. One of the most important decisions I ever made in my life was doing that. Yeah, crazy. I couldn't believe it.
You mentioned Supertramp, and I love, so you guys got asked to play for the royal family. And you had a very interesting interaction with Princess Diana. I love this story. So you got to tell the Princess Diana story.
All right. So, we find out we're out on the road during the road. We find out we're going to do this Royal Command performance at Royal Albert Hall, one of the great places of all time. And we're going to get to meet them and play this thing. It happened to be that Supertramp was Lady Diana's favorite band. And so we were invited to come play the Prince's Trust, which was a big fundraising event. And at the time I thought, okay, let me figure out what this is about because I'm going to get to meet them. I wanted to know. So I started doing a little research and I found out that the Prince's Trust was really about entrepreneurship. They were raising funds to help small businesses to, give them some fundraising for them to grow businesses. And I thought, I'm an entrepreneur. I love business and everything. So they sent out a guy about a month before we're there to teach us what we can and what we can't do. Right. You have to go through this whole protocol. I mean, it's like a whole thing, all this stuff. So during that whole time, I was in the middle of starting a business called Advanced Visual Communications, which was a kind of a merchandising graphics business back in the day. And there was this guy named Yatta, who was an artist that I was working with, and he had created this little logo of my thing, but then I had a little button and stuff. And it was all about entrepreneurship. So I was thinking the whole time, what can I say? So we show up at Royal Albert Hall at and we're in this special room and it's 7:30, man. We're supposed to meet them. All of a sudden I look out the window, the cars drive up. It's a whole big thing. They all come up to this thing and we're now in a line. Well, during that period of time, I thought, well, what can I say to these people? So I had my button, and when she walked in, we were in a line, we're walking in the line, she's coming through the line, she comes into me and I step into her and I hand her this button, right? Which was at the time was not necessarily protocol you were supposed to do, but I thought, oh, what the heck? I get a shot at meeting the prince and these two incredible people. And so I reached in and I handed her this button and I started talking to her about entrepreneurship, about my business and how important it was, blah, blah, blah. And so she takes this button. Well, the next day, every newspaper in the place is a picture of me handing her this button, right? And just talking this thing. And it was so interesting because I was the American in the band, everybody else was English. It was such a big deal. And it called, the Lady and the Tramp. It was everywhere. Now, the funny part is Prince Charles came next up in line. And I looked at him and I said, gosh, this has got to be crazy with all these people every day going through this. And he reaches over me, he says, you know what? It's not easy being a professional nice guy. So it was really kind of funny. But anyway, that was a real thrill getting to meet them at that time. It was pretty wild.
What a life you've had. So one of my favorite movies of all time is Spinal Tap. I mean, and so I remember you and I were chatting one day, and I think I mentioned to you that it was one of my favorite movies, and you're like, "Oh, I have a Spinal Tap story for you."
That's
So
right.
tell us the Spinal Tap story.
Yeah, so I was in New York actually. I got really heavy into on the tech side of building business. I was there with Jeff Baxter. If you know Baxter, who's the guitar player from Steely Dan and the Doobie Brothers, and we were in New York pushing our CD-ROM project that we were working on together. And we're walking down the street, and all of a sudden, this limousine across the street comes open. The door opens up, and it was Harry Shearer, who was one of the Spinal Tap comedians and stuff. And he goes, Baxter. He sees Jeff and says, "Oh man, we're playing tonight." I think it was at not Royal Albert, at Radio Music Hall, right? Radio City Music Hall, right? And he says, "Come down and play." So myself and Baxter, we got to go down. I got to sit in and play with those guys in New York at the Royal Albert, which was, listen, was an incredible thrill because, as a musician, that movie was like, that was like the epitome of just one of the great rock and roll movies of all time, because it was so true, which was so funny. But yeah, I got to play with those guys that day, man. I have a whole shrine in my house here where I collected the little birds they dropped and the little, all the little toys and stuff that they had that they gave out at that time. But yeah, that was crazy cool to get to play with those guys. And one of the interesting parts was, which we may talk about later, but I was actually put them on the moon. They don't even know it yet. Their new movie's coming out, and I haven't told them. So everybody here knows I actually put them on a hard drive that landed on the moon on February 22nd. So it's a little bit of my Spinal Tap story.
Let's talk about the Luna Prize Museum and what you've done there to kind of archive all of this incredible history. Tell everybody about that, because I think it's so wild.
It is actually, I still kind of pinch myself. I can't believe it. I was picked as one of 222 artists to put their works on this special hard drive that was designed, some technology that is designed where they actually etch the images into a piece of metal of some sort. I don't know the process, but it's designed to last 1 billion years. Like, it handle every kind of weather, everything. Well, it actually went up on a Falcon 9, an Elon Musk Falcon 9 spaceship, pushed on the Odysseus lunar lander, which sat on top of it, which pushed, and it actually landed on the moon. The first time we've been on the moon in 50 plus years. And that's if you still believe that we were on the moon. There's a lot of contentions about whether we actually went back in those days. I have my own questions on that, but supposedly we were the first time anybody's been on the moon in 50 years. I put 7,000 digital twins up there. I actually put my entire life history, I put 150 hours of Pink Floyd video, all my photographs from there, all my Supertramp, Toto, my meeting with Lady Diana Charles, the first recording of the wah wah pedal that was ever done. I had a business with Quincy Jones called QD7. I put all the QD7. So I put all this stuff onto this special hard drive that landed there on February 22nd. I'm actually releasing right now. I'm getting ready to start an exhibit called My Moon EXP, which is all about all of this history that I put up on the moon. And we're sort of unveiling that. I'm actually going to be showing a sneak peek of that at Art Basel this year in Miami, coming up in about 3 weeks. I'm actually working on that project right now. So yeah, it's pretty interesting to be actually on the moon. I look up there and I can see, imagine I've got stuff actually sitting up there. And what's going to be fun is Pink Floyd doesn't know it yet. Either does Supertramp or any of these people don't really know this is happening yet. So I'm getting ready to unveil it. So I'm sort of pseudo unveiling it here. I've talked about it a bit before, but not like I have here. So yeah, pretty excited about it.
So cool. And, so obviously Quincy Jones passed away not that long ago.
Loved Q.
Tell us a little bit about like your business career. And you got, I think you probably got the entrepreneurial bug from your dad.
Yeah.
Walk us. We would need 3 hours to kind of walk people through all the different businesses that you've created, but kind of, I guess, give us the Reader's Digest version. Walk us through like all these unbelievable things that you have created over the years.
first of all, it's so strange to think about, right? Because you never think about these things when it's actually happening, right?
Right.
You do it. But yeah, I got pretty lucky. I got the bug business. I really loved business. It was actually interesting because when I was out with Pink Floyd, I figured we were going out for 2 years on that tour. So going on the road for 2 years, that's a pretty big commitment. I thought, what am I going to do? I'm going to study business. So the whole time I was out there, I was reading business books and really trying to get up. And it was funny because Dave Gilmore used to come up and go, Scott, what are you doing? Dude, I'm going to be a business when we get done with this tour, man. I'm going to be a business guy. I'm going to read Reading in Search of Excellence, all these great books and stuff. And he'd kind of pat me on the back. Oh, okay, good. That sounds good, Scott. Well, little 18 months after we got back, I started a company with Bob Ezrin, who was the producer of all the Pink Floyd records, one of the top producers in the world. We started a company together. I saw, I actually produced and was part of a project called Music Bytes, which was the first CD-ROM music project that was really put together for computer users. So it was the early days of CD-ROM because there was no music for a PowerPoint or for any of that. And even in those days, the computers didn't even have speakers in them at the time, and you had to go buy special speakers. But it was that early period of time. And so we produced a thing called Music Bytes, which was sound, and it was kind of an all-star thing. I had all the Tower Power and Supertramp. I had everybody play on this disc, and we were out pushing that disc. So I got really heavy in the tech space, and since then I've launched 4 companies, and that company was a company called Seventh Level that we started. And that was where I actually got to co-produce and direct, along with Richard Merrick, who was our CTO at the time, the world's first interactive cartoon, which starred Howie Mandel, which was called Toonland. And I believe we sold about 11 million units of that. And that's what took our company public. We took that company public. It was a NASDAQ company. Went out there. Mike Milken, the famous entrepreneur, he was the first funding in my company at the time, put the first basically $8 million into that company. And then we took that company public and been through that. But since then, I've been, really heavy in the tech space. I'm on my 5th company right now. I've had a mobile messaging network company and built a whole mashing piece called Mashcast, which was back in the day, which was really kind of real-time mashing globally. So I've been in the tech space for a while, and currently I have a company that I'm a co-founder in called YieldX. That's YLDX.ai, and we're a hybrid liquidity pool aggregator in the crypto space. So I'm heavily in Web3 now. Currently, I speak on Web3, NFTs, meme tokens, decentralized finance. That's my main thing right now, and really working on that. And I've been going around the world. I went to Europe in the last 120 days, probably 3 times, I think, back and forth, going to speak at conferences and also play and do music and stuff out there. So, yeah, I've been had a pretty good ride in the business sense. I love business. I love the art of business. I actually teach a thing called SPACE, which stands for Story, Plan, Army, Conversion, Education/Execution. It's a kind of a business framework for entrepreneurs. So I love to teach entrepreneurs on how to think about building a business, because let's face it, we're all in the media business now. Social media, we are startups. Artists are startups. So I teach that type of thing. But yeah, I've been fully blown in the tech space for quite a few years now. I'm that's kind of my favorite thing. I love to play, but I also love business. So it's a big part of what I've been doing.
It's funny because every time we've chatted, like you're such a masterful storyteller, and I love the stories about, Pink Floyd and Supertramp and Toto, but you light up when it comes to talking about Web3 and just, crypto, and my brain tries desperately to keep up with you, and I do a very bad job of keeping up with you because you are brilliant in that area. What is it about these cutting edge technologies that just gets you so fired up?
Wow. Well, I mean, really, the truth is this is the greatest time in history for independent artists and for small businesses, because we get to take back the power of the currency. Decentralized finance changes the game in a big way, puts the power back. And what I'm really excited about is how these new technology, how the blockchain and stuff really can empower the independent now at a level we've never seen before, right? And they just don't know it yet. This is the greatest time. They just don't understand it yet. But what I love is really the fact that this is basically changing, taking the power of finance that's been really controlled by others and putting it back in the hands of the people, where they can kind of control their thing, wallet to wallet transactions, global transactions. So this is, I think right now we're in currency wars, which I would say between centralized finance and decentralized finance. And the decentralized is really sovereign freedom for the people. This is why I love it so much, is because this is the opportunity for us to gain back the freedom. Because let's face it, it's all about currency, right? Everything runs around the dollar. Everything is about generating revenue. We can all say we want all these other things, but at the end of the day, that's the grease that kind of makes things happen. So when I see what happened with blockchain, when I started to realize the power of an NFT and real world assets, which is basically what NFTs are. NFTs, for those out there to understand, is probably, some people look at it as a bad word, but it's called a non-fungible token. In other words, it's really just a contract, a thing called a smart contract that you can attach to virtually any digital object or even physical objects and put it on the blockchain. And it basically allows you to have all the rights, the rules, the permissions, and everything that's around whatever that object is. But that game is about to change everything. I think we're going to see the greatest wealth transfer in history for the people because of what's happening. And thank God we now have a very pro crypto government, which has been a big problem for us in the space for a while because of the regulations and not giving us regulations and not showing us how this has to work. It's driven all of us entrepreneurs offshore to start companies out in other places. Finally, our government is seeing the power of it. Trump wants to make this the crypto capital of the world. So now we have a very, very pro government crypto time. And this is an opportunity, man. People can create their own currencies and start building things. And you can now start creating these relationships between vendors, where I can now start moving money around globally in the matter of seconds, where, usually if you got to go through the banks and the third parties, you got to go, if I want to move $10,000 to you over in Europe, I got to go through a whole process, where in crypto, I can just go boom, and few seconds later, we've got the money. So what excites me is freedom for the people. This is the greatest time because we have been truly enslaved in a system of debt, right? That's our whole thing, is we constantly borrow money and debt. This is going to free us from all of that. And that's what makes me really excited about it, is the fact that this is really freedom for the people. We have an opportunity to take it back. Now, we got to get there. We're not there yet, but things are moving in the right direction. So we have a real shot.
I think the other thing that we've spoken about in the past that, I see you light up. Let's talk a little bit about mindfulness and kind of that's really your jam.
My favorite subject. It's really actually the only one that matters. Oops, somebody's calling me. Is the only one that really matters. And I'm glad you brought that up, because if you didn't, I would have. I always bring it up in every podcast, everything I ever do. Is, we're here for one reason and one reason only, all of us, for one thing, is to help consciousness unfold. That's it. You blink, you're 50, you blink, you're on your deathbed. Time is a complete illusion. It's like we make up all this stuff. And our biggest problem we have on the planet today is we're addicted to thinking. Thinking is where all our suffering comes, because the truth of the matter is the only thing that's real is us talking right now. That's it. 2 minutes ago is an illusion. 2 minutes from now is an illusion. So the sooner we start to realize that the only thing that matters is the step that you're taking right now, and we start becoming more aware of that moment, we wake up, right? Because we start to realize that all the suffering that I'm having is because I'm locked into a thought. Like, because I could be suffering right now. I could be sitting here suffering. Oh my God, I can't do this. I can pay my bill. Oh, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. But the truth of the matter is, I'm just sitting here talking to you. There's no lion chasing me. There's nobody hurting me. There's nothing. So we have to learn how to wake up and get ourselves out of being identified with thinking. So everything I do every day, every step that I take, everything is always about being aware of the step that I'm taking and realizing that the past just dissolves. It's an illusion that goes on. The future is an illusion, but that's where all our suffering comes. So everything I do is really about trying to get people to realize that it's all about being aware, awareness. We all hear about being aware, but the puzzle we have to solve is, how do I know I'm aware that I'm aware? Right? Because your mind and your ego will say, oh, I'm aware, but truthfully, you're not. You're still locked into the thought. You're still living the dream. You're still feeling everything that's going on in your head, but you're not really paying attention to reality. So everything this is the greatest freedom you will ever have, is once you can learn to kind of, what I'll say, you cannot resist what is. Right. So the one you learn to surrender to what is, again, forgiveness and surrender are basically the same thing, interchanged, right? Because you cannot surrender unless you forgive, and you cannot forgive unless you surrender. So it's a combination. But this internal thing is really what I think, on the global basis, I believe we're in spiritual wars, right? Between conscious and the unconscious. We're seeing so many crazy things going on right now, right? People, that makes no sense. And so the most important thing we can do right now is wake up. And I truly believe that the planet is waking up. We're now starting to see a lot of things going on that we've never seen before, that are now becoming very much in the forefront, so people can actually see and start waking up to that. So there's nothing more important than that inward journey. I try to tell this. I try to teach this to all the kids. I teach them everything, that one sense of really being aware of what you're doing, being awake at that moment, is really life-changing. And I think we're watching that unfold as we go right now.
Well, you said something key there, which, and then guys, I'll open it up for you guys to ask questions. You said, once we learn, how do you learn, or how did you learn how to be more present, and to be where your feet are?
Yeah. So this is a big thing. First of all, it fascinated me like crazy. Like everything, suffering is probably one of the greatest tools that there is to help you wake up. People don't realize that once you become grateful for the suffering that you go through, that's where it unveils, you start to wake up from that, right? So for me, it was, I went through a period of time with a business and stuff where I got completely trashed. I was beating myself up. I couldn't take it anymore, right? I was just like mentally going crazy, even though I had no reason. I had everything I needed. I had a house, a car, I'm living good, but I was suffering so much. And it forced me into taking that inward journey. And once I started taking that inward journey, I started to realize that there's nothing more important. Now, here's the exercise that I used to wake me up, or to help me basically flip the switch from being where we're locked in as the thinker, but basically flipping to where you become the watcher. Right? That's the first step in the kind of awakening process, is being aware of your thoughts, right? But the question is how do I know I'm aware that I'm aware, which is the tough part. So what I do, and what I did, I remember reading in this book one time, it said, as often as you can throughout the day, stop yourself where you are, put all your attention on where you are. Like right now, I'm in my office here, and I'm sitting here, and this is it, all my attention. And then ask this question: what am I feeling right now? Once I'm done this, am I feeling any anxiety, tension, or fear? If I'm feeling any, feeling any tension, anxiety, fear, and there's no lion chasing me, there's nobody hurting me, I know I'm identified with a thought, right? So every time you stop, you do that, you wake up a little bit, because you're like watching your thought. You're like asking that question, and you're examining yourself. And what happens is, every time you do that, you wake up a tiny bit more, because you become examining. And then one day you go, who's watching? Is there two of me? This gets fascinating now. Now you start being able to see and watch your thinking, right? And that, once you do that, you start to flip the exercise, flip the viewpoint, right? Because that's what you're trying to do, is really just shift your point of view. So I remember the first time I tried doing that, and I said, I read the book, I'm going to get up the next day and I do it. Next day, I'm in bed the next night, and I went, oh, I couldn't even ask that question once. I was so asleep because I was waking up. I'm thinking about my email. I'm always in the future. I'm thinking about the past. I'm not really paying attention what's happening. So the next day I said, I'm going to do it again. I ended up doing it like 2 or 3 times. And then I said, this is crazy. I can't even ask that question. I'm so lost in thought and thinking throughout the day. So I ended up putting little sticky pad notes all over my house. Like when I go in the morning, I go get my coffee. I open the coffee cup and it says, wake up. And then I stop myself and where am I? I'm standing here in front of the cupboard. I'm looking at there. And then I'm asking myself, what am I feeling? Oh, I'm all tensed up. Why am I tensed up? Is because I'm identified with a thought. By doing that, you wake up a little bit. So this, I can't stress more than anything. There is nothing in your entire life more important than this, because it's freedom. It's like you need to die before you die. You surrender to life at a different level, that all of a sudden life becomes very playful and peaceful. Even when you're getting pounded. Like, I mean, listen, we've all get pounded, right? We've all been through just crazy, even horrific and horrible things. But inside of that, there's a seed of grace in everything to make us basically wake up and not identify with a thought, but identify with reality. Because the only thing that's real is you talking. 2 minutes ago when I was talking ain't real anymore. Just an illusion. So that's why anybody that basically focuses on their attention on something that happened to them in the past, it's like crazy. We identify, oh, that person did me bad. That's horrible. I'll never forgive them. It was my best friend for all those years, and something triggered us, and now we hate each other for some reason, and it's just insane. It's insanity. It's like complete insanity. So, this is what I try to teach everything. I try to teach the kids everything. Mindfulness, being aware, putting your attention where you are, really looking in and understanding, and not understanding. I'm actually saying it's knowing. I mean, here's a pointer. The minute you say you understand it, awareness is up, you've missed it. You cannot understand it. You can only know it. So once you get past the understanding and get to the point where you know, then nothing can change, because now you know it as true, not understanding it as something I do. So it's all about this inward journey. Everything I do, every step I take, minute I take in my day, this is all I care about. That's it. All the rest of it takes care of itself. And what's fascinating, the minute you take this point of view and you start moving through this, everything just starts to happen. Because you're now not forcing things to happen. You're not trying to manipulate a deal to get in the door. I'm going to close this deal. No, I go into deals now. If it happens, great. If it don't happen, I don't really care. Truthfully, it just, everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. It's very simple. So this inward journey is a very, very important, I think the most important thing anybody can do.
So I promised you that Scott was interesting and brilliant, and I think we proved that in 40 minutes. Scott, you ready for some questions?
Certainly.
Colonel Scott Heathman, you're up with the great Scott Page.
Another Scott.
Another Scott. Yeah. I've got goosebumps, my friend. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, nice to meet you, my friend.
You too. My journey today started out listening to Momentary Lapse of Reason and killing it with some Terminal Frost and Dogs of War, and I still love the solos.
Thank you.
That was the first concert I ever went to in Minneapolis in 1988. Wow. I was just finishing up 7th grade, and I went to Pink Floyd. I've never been to a concert before, and I was hooked. I was like, I love the live experience. I'm curious, though, of all the bands you played with, because you've got some monster bands here, which one do you feel like brought out the essence of you? Like, this is my people, this is my tribe.
It's a very interesting question, because each of the different bands I got different things from. Like with Pink Floyd, David Gilmour really taught me the power of melody, right? He really made me think about he's the master of melody, because if you think about his songs, like if you think about Comfortably Numb, right? Think about Comfortably Numb, that solo, the first solo that he plays in the middle. If that solo wasn't there, you'd feel like you left a verse out, right? It felt like you left a part of the song out. So he was really instrumental for me as far as really understanding, taking he changed my playing style like crazy. Instead of trying to play, I try to play more melodic, more melody wise, right? You know, listen, Pink Floyd, that brand is so powerful globally. It's unbelievable. I mean, I would tell stories about, like, I remember we'd come out in the south of France, and we come out the hotel, and there's guys there with their records, you know, wanting to get signed and autographs. Next thing I know, I'm in Japan. Those same people are standing there. Next thing I know, I'm in New York. Those same people are standing there. It's crazy. They follow this around. It's such a powerful brand. So from a musical point of view, that was really incredible. But I got to say, all of them, it's like with Toto, that was just an incredible group of musicians, like, just like, you know, talk about over the top musicians. And they were my friends growing up because I was in a kid band with them when we were there. So for playing with them was really a really big deal for me, because when I grew up, I was the worst guy in the band. When we were kids, and then I had to study, and I practiced like crazy and took lessons from teachers. And then finally, after about 10, 12 years, I got called to go play with Toto. That was like a big deal for me, because my friends were such great musicians and I sucked. I was horrible. Like, I was not very good. And so I had to really hustle and stuff. But yeah, you know, Toto was great from you know, each of them are different. It's kind of hard to say. And then Supertramp was really incredible for me because of John Helliwell and stuff, where he taught me about life. It was less about music on that tour, more about life, because he was a guy that had a natural sense of presence already built into him. Every time he'd take a bite of food, his eyes would go blank, because he would taste every bite of food, and he would wear beautiful clothes, and you'd see him over there just staring at his clothes, looking at the fine lines, all the things. I mean, the guy loved quality. So that question is really kind of hard to say, because each of them had, you know, unique things. Each of them have been so different. You know, I mean, again, I played with everybody from James Brown to Chuck Berry to, gosh, I just a lot of different people through the years. But yeah, I don't know about the tribe. It's just people in general, right?
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. And I still don't know how you hit some of those notes in Dog of War.
I don't either anymore.
Bruce Shutan, who's our drummer. Bruce.
Yes, Scott, that's my question is all about that. So I want to go back to Toto for a second. So Jeff Beccaro, as you know, well, most people don't realize he was not just the original drummer of Toto, who passed unfortunately in 1992, but he was a monster studio session guy and played on thousands
of records. Yeah,
thousands of records. So he was a huge influence on me, and I wanted to ask you, where do you think he is on the pantheon of drummers across the board, studio, performing, you know, rock, jazz, you know, kind of looking back on American music? Because, you know, he's known as the drummer's drummer. Everybody has him in their top 10 list. But what do you think, just kind of overall, how will history look down upon him?
Listen, Jeff was probably one of the greatest drummers of all time. I mean, his feel was ridiculous, right? He had such a sense of feel. And truthfully, he's the reason I'm a musician. Because when I was in that kid band, I was the oldest guy in the band, right? And we're winning all the battle events. So it was like, felt like a rock star back in those days. And it was because he was, you know, he was like 14, 15. He was doing the Sonny and Cher show and doing all these things. He took off, and I was back there going, man, I want to be a musician. So in the back of my mind, I always was like Jeff. I wanted to get to the point where I build enough respect for Jeff. So that's why when I got called to go play with Toto after all those years, I was like blown. It was the scariest thing I'd ever done. I'll never forget. So you'll love this story real quick. So I was, so I got the call to play with him. Now I'm listen, I didn't want to fall down, man. I practiced. I was studying that music 10 hours a day. I learned every bit of Toto like you couldn't even believe, man. I was ready to roll. It was like insane. So I go to the first day rehearsal, scared. I couldn't sleep the night before. You know, these are my heroes. And these guys were monsters at that time. I mean, you know, the band was really well known, all the Grammys and all the stuff, right? So I'll never forget. I go into the rehearsal for the first time, right? And I'm getting ready to go play, think I'm going to play. And the first thing Jeff does is hand me a cowbell.
More cowbell.
The first song is Cowbell that I'm going to play with Toto. It's not going to be played by music. And I'm like, holy shit. Basically, he wanted to see how my time was. He wanted to see if I could groove, if I had time. Well, luckily, I was a metronome nut, man. I eat, drink, sleep metronomes. I owned one of the first Lynn drum machines, the first 5 Lynn drum machines. I'm a fanatic about time, about the groove. I spent all my time in there just really studying the beat. And so I'll never forget that. I was so scared. And after I played the first 2, like lock it in with Jeff, he came over and put his arm around me and said, okay, Paige, I was in. But everybody asked me, what was the most fun about playing with Toto? And I'd always say I got to play cowbell on 4 songs with Jeff Porcaro during the show. Because, dude, that you talk about somebody that had the groove. And my riser was right next to his, and I'd look down at him on the drums, and we would lock eyes. And all he did is play 2 and 4. But you could hear when he would move the backbeat around just a tiny bit, like this one he may drag it a little bit and this one push it a little forward, because once you start looking at the beat, like at that level, like where you feel the stick sinking into the cowbell, you're not hitting the cowbell, you're sinking into the cowbell so that you get that lope, that little dead air before it hits, right? There's a whole massive science to that. But yeah, so Jeff, listen, I am so thankful for Jeff Porcaro. He really inspired me, because in my back of my mind growing up, all I could say was, I want to get good enough that I could play with Jeff again. Right. So getting that gig and playing with him again, and then obviously being good friends for years. I mean, I remember when we were kids, I had this old 57 Porsche that I got in high school that I had, and I used to pull the seats out. Jeff would get in the back and we'd pile his drums in on top of them. We'd go play casuals together when we were kids. So when it comes to drums, he is probably one of the most respected drummers of all time, because his feel was just insane. I mean, incredible player.
Unbelievable stories. Alex Smith, you're up.
Thanks, Bruce.
Oh, man.
Thanks. Talk about my favorite guy. One of my favorite things, the groove, right?
Oh my God. Scott, I love music in my bones. I love Pink Floyd. I probably watched The Wall and doing some really bad things growing up, but
didn't we all? I keep saying I guess I'm the luckiest person in the world. I survived rock and roll. I'm alive to talk about it. Had more fun than any human, and I'm alive to talk about it. How? I don't know.
And you are super interesting. You're also bringing me back, because I lived in Philly for 10 years, and I'm sure you remember this name. He just passed away. He's a DJ there for 40 years, Pierre Robert, and was like the DJ. Like, you don't get people that stay on the radio for 40 years. And I think just how he connected with audience, that's how what I take from you, and you're kind of bringing me back. So I don't know if you have any stories with him, but my question for you was, I always love the stories of musicians that come up with something out of the blue, you didn't realize that you're just jamming and some awesome song comes out from it. So I don't know if you have any of that. And always curious how you compared yourself to other musicians, because it sounds like you got to play with these amazing musicians at maybe a time in your career where you weren't necessarily the man yet. And I feel like I have friends.
Still not the man.
Well, you are. Well, to us, you are. But I'm I'm into guitar, but I'm just a beginner. But I have a friend that's been playing it for 20 years, and he compares himself. He's like, I'm not that good. I don't think I could make money doing this. I'm like, you're 1% of 1%. So I don't know how you could. I guess my question is, how do you deal with comparison? Do you still do it? And
listen,
business. Yeah.
It's a never-ending battle, playing music. Actually, I'm practicing now and playing more right now than I have in many, many years. I'm in this kind of what I call music fever mode right now, where I just really trying to practice, because I would consider myself, truthfully, I'm not a great saxophone player. I know like really great saxophone players, guys that can play anything, any key, anytime. I actually am more what I'd call a stylist. I realized early on that the most important thing is not what you play, but what you say. Right. Because I took it from a business point of view, because it was like, okay, I'll never forget. My friend calls me up. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning. I get my buddy Danny called, dude, have you heard this album? It's called First Flight. It's by this guy named the saxophone player named David Sanborn. Right. And I remember, well, no, I never heard of this. So I went to Cower Records at 2 in the morning, picked this record up, came on, put it on. And I heard David Sanborn. I said, I'm never going to play the alto again. I'm done. I'm done. The game's over. This guy, everything's going to be him. And I remember that night, because I was an alto player trying to play jazz and stuff. And I remember going, okay, let me think about this. Because again, my business mind is like, okay, how do you rise above the noise, right? Because there's so much noise out there. How do you make yourself? So I said, okay, let me think about this. I said, saxophone players, okay, jazz guys, Fat Ed Newman, Lockjaw Davis, Ben Webster, Ike Quebec, Charlie Parker, Cannonball, blah. I'm going through this massive list. And then I said, well, what about rock and roll saxophone players? And then I went, oh, well, there's King Curtis, there's Junior Walker, there's what? There's no more. Who are they? Right. And I said, so instead of going, I'm going to go, I'm going to play really dumb and I'm going to be really simple. And so I put my alto away. I moved over to tenor. And then I just said, I'm going to play kid chords. I'm not going to try to play anything fancy. I'm going to just try to play as simple as I can and try to make it meaningful. So for me, it was really about, I figured out a style. I figured out how to, what I call, and I try to tell everybody, wear your own clothes, right? How do you wear your own clothes as opposed to being somebody else or trying to be? Now, I studied a lot of different guys, learned some licks and all of that stuff. Junior Walker was one of my all-time favorite saxophone player because I just love the rhythm, his time and all of that. But it's really, it is about how do you rise above the noise. So for me, I basically am now at the point where I'm studying chords and I'm trying to play scales and all that stuff, because all those years before, I just play what I play. I don't really have any thing. And I wasn't really studied when it came to chords, jazz, all of that stuff. I just one of those guys that play what you feel and kind of go for it in that way. So it's I know some really great saxophone players. I would even take my horn out next to at any time. But at the same time, I was able to figure out something that made myself unique, which is really the name of the game. It's not what you play, it's what you say, right?
I love wear your own clothes. That is brilliant. Jared.
Hey, Scott, pleasure to meet you. Today, talking about business, crypto, whammy pedals. You're hitting all my love languages over here.
Yeah, good.
So, I'm a huge crypto enthusiast. I read a bunch of books by Andreas Antonopoulos and really started to realize how decentralization could help the people. Yeah. So out of curiosity, with your knowledge in the music industry, do you see any role that crypto could play in terms of strengthening the connection between fans and music?
Dude, the game is about to happen. It's called liquidity. And I'm actually getting ready to launch. So my company, where I'm co-founder in a company, this YieldX, we're hybrid liquidity pool business. So imagine this model. This is what I'm really excited. I'm getting ready to present this at Art Basel. So here's the deal. So our liquidity pools are basically, think of for people who don't understand liquidity, every trade has to have some sort of liquidity, whether it's a stock market or it's a coin. There's a pile of money that allows trading and stuff go on. This is what they call liquidity pools. And liquidity pools, coins and stuff will get people to stake their money, put their money in this pool, and they'll give you interest, right? They'll give you money on that. So we have a business. Think of us like the S&P 500 of liquidity pools. We have 3 pools. We have a stable coin pool. It's doing 2.2 to 2.4% a month in interest. We have a coin pool, which is doing, which is Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the dollar, which is doing 2.7 to 4.2% per month for the last 3 years. It's just running. And then our DEX pool, which is made up of we look at 800 liquidity pools out there. We picked the top 40 pools, over 25 of the top chains. We never put more than 2.5% of the money in any one pool. And so we've diversified the thing, and we're getting 7.2 to 8.4% a month in that thing. So that's doubling your money. When you let that compound, that's more than doubling your money every year. So imagine this. Okay, so now here's where it gets to the music industry, right? So what we're launching is we're launching the a real world asset index right now, which will be our fourth pool. And the way that works is a big part of, again, the decentralizing this whole pool thing is you guys become your own bank, right? You get to lend and borrow your money. You know how the banks, when you go to the bank and the bank says, oh, I'll give you, put your money in this vehicle and we'll give you 3% a year, 4% a year. And then they go and leverage your money. Then they go borrow money and make all kinds of money. And we never get to see any of that, right? Well, in the DeFi space, now we have a lending and borrowing protocols. We have 67 of them inside of our application, right? So we lend and borrow your money. So imagine this. So I'm getting ready to launch my Moon EXP, my stuff that I put on the moon, my exhibit. And I have a piece called the Golden Mullet. You can go look at the Golden Mullet at mymoonexp.com, mymoonexp. And the Golden Mullet is basically a picture of me with my crazy old mullet from back in the day that was turned into made out of the 7,000 pieces that I put on the moon, right? And so all of the art in there. Now, here's where it goes to the musician. Now we're getting to your to answer your question. So what I'm doing is imagine this: everything you buy, everything you build, YieldX, what we do is instead of a cashback program, what we say is I'm going to share the yield with you. So in other words, I have a piece of art. Let's say that piece of art is $10,000. I told you, I'm saying I'm taking $5,000 of that. I'm pegging it to the piece of art for 5 years. You can't touch it. It's locking it into that piece of art. The $10,000, I'm putting 5, and then I'm going to share the revenue with you based on going into the pools. So now let's say I put 5,000, I bought the piece of art for $10,000, paid me 10,000. I'm taking the 5,000, putting it in the pool. That pool is doubling every year, right? So the 5,000 that I put in becomes 10,000 at the end of the first year, becomes 20,000 at the end of the second year, becomes 40,000 after the fourth year, becomes 80,000 after the fifth year, right? And you say, well, how can I do that? How is it possible? Well, it's because AI and DeFi is changing the game in a big way, because now we have a vehicle that we can look at this liquidity. We can look at these pools. The AI is watching it all the time, 24/7, and balancing it. So if the pool starts to go wonky, since you're distributed across, we can now level that. Now, we've been running this for over 3 years. If you put $1 in our DEX pool 3 years ago, it's about $20 now. Right? So it's all on chain. You could go all see this. So it sounds crazy, but imagine pegging liquidity to everything. Think about as an artist, tickets. You say to your ticket, I got a VIP pass, right? My VIP is going to be $1,000 to buy this VIP pass token, right? Which would be, but I'm going to take $500. I'm going to put it in the pool and I'm going to share that revenue with you. So the minute you buy the object, it's generating revenue. So you're putting liquidity into everything. So our company, we're building our app out right now. So imagine you go up your Nike and you're selling shoes, and the shoes are $150. Nike says, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put $50 into this program, and then you're going to get the revenue from that program. So now you bought the shoes for $150. You realize that $50 is going to generate revenue. In 18 months, I've got my money back from my shoes. So we're going to see liquidity go into everything. Same with these passes. A member of VIP pass, it's $1,000. I have 500 people that bought that. I put $500 in. I'm going to start getting revenue as the artist, continuous, because I'm pegging that in what we're calling life yield. That's the name of our real world asset index, is you putting that money in, you're generating off the yield. Now, why that's interesting, our entire company, YieldX, we ate our own dog food. All of our investors, they put money, but we never touched the principal. We only put the money into the pools. The pool generates the interest. So what happens is now you can start looking new business models for artists. Like say, okay, my business, I'm a nonprofit or whatever, let's say, and I need to generate 100 grand a month. Oh, if I put $1.5 million into the pool, I'm going to start generating $100,000 a month. So we're now looking at new models where liquidity and putting money into these things can start generating revenue. So for artists, it's crazy cool because now I can have all these people. It's almost like you're getting to share in the profits of the band or whoever it is, but now it keeps going. And now if I let that compound, now that asset that was that ticket can be sold on, can be leveraged, right? Because that's the whole idea of putting liquidity into everyday everything, right? Because now you can leverage it. That's the whole idea. They're buying. Why do you think they're buying all these catalogs? It's not to own the catalogs, so they can take those catalogs and they can leverage them and borrow against them. So now we have through lending and borrowing and things. So for artists, this whole new idea of fans, super fans, right? What I would call, again, and I believe that you want to survive, you got to build a hive. The whole game now is building a hive of people around your business. So now with liquidity, where I'm going to share in it with my fans and with my stuff, changes the game. And I then have an ongoing revenue stream as the artist, because I may say, I'm going to give you 80% of the revenue. I'm going to take 20. So now if I've got 1,000 people that paid $500, I now have that $500 per thousand, whatever that is, $500,000, whatever that dollar is, it generating revenue for me that's in the pools that's put in. And the important part of the thing is the pools is because of the AI and the diversification, it allows us to take the risk out. Most risk in, if you know, obviously being crypto, putting money in liquidity pools or staking your fees can be a little scary, because you could wake up one day and all of a sudden liquidity's gone and you can't get out. In this model, since we diversify it across 25 chains, across all the blockchains, we only put a small amount in. We now reduce the risk from 5.7% roughly. ChatGPT will tell you it's about 5.7% down to 0.00006, because it's leveling all the time. So now we have predictable revenue that we can start looking at that can now start feeding these models. So our whole thing is our app. You walk up to it, you see our little YieldX logo. It's got a QR code. You go, boom. When you buy that product, you already know your money goes into your wallet. And what's beautiful about this is our thing is updating every second. So now you can watch your money grow in your app. You walk in your app and you're growing. So everything you buy now starts to have liquidity. So for artists, this is the greatest tool set ever, because now I can have a small group of people that can come in. I can share the revenue, but the revenue is building. So instead of thinking like a cashback card when you're doing with gas or something where you go buy $100 worth of gas, you get it back. You buy and it goes into a pool and you're only spending the liquidity, the interest, right? Game changer. And I think this is about to change the game in a big way. So for artists, especially.
Unbelievable. So our cleanup hitter is Jim Perona, who's a classical guitarist. I don't know. Are you going to play us a little ditty or what do you got for Mr. Page?
Oh my gosh. This is like, all right. So there's so many moments in this conversation where I'm just like blown away. You have left me let's see here. You have left me comfortably numb, in the best way, my goodness, Scott, thank you. Oh, and thank you for also pointing out the musicianship level of Toto, because we saw them. They were the opening act for Journey a couple years ago, and this is not to disparage, but it was night and day. It should have been, that bill should have been the other way around, because you have Steve Lukather, the most
Luke Daddy's unbelievable.
Yeah, and he surrounds himself, of course, with the greatest studio musicians on the planet. And,
yeah, I mean, Luke. One thing about playing with Luke is every time you play with him, I don't care what band, I played with him a ton and a lot of different times. He lifts the band up. When he comes on the stage, it goes to another place. There's some magic he has when he jumps on the bandstand. And I'll tell you, I love playing with him. He's incredible.
I love that. And I've even learned more throughout this past hour, how you and Luke have that same thing where if you're not a household name, but everybody has heard you, everybody has tapped their foot to your riffs, to your playing, whether they know it or not.
That's funny. Yeah.
It's
so interesting.
So cool.
It's so interesting that when I look back and I think of all the people I play with, I can't even believe it. It's just like shocking. But the problem is I'm old.
Scott, you are a legend, my friend. So I know we went way over time, guys, and I know we had a ton of people that had to drop off, but Scott, this has been electric. I mean, we covered a lot of real estate in a very short period of time. I appreciate you. I appreciate every conversation. I feel smarter and dumber after every single one because I realize what I don't know. But I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm very honored to be in your magazine, man. I had no idea when I first got called, when you connected, I didn't realize it. And after looking at what you've done, man, I'm very honored. So thank you very much. Cause I mean, the people that are part of this is just incredible. I mean,
well, thank you.
I'm so thankful. And by the way, I'm going to put it on the moon. So, cause I'm going back. Again.
Outlier magazine on the moon.
I was picked again to go back, 22 of them, to put stuff back on the moon, and actually potentially this other planet they're talking about right now. So I'm definitely I'm going to add this into my payload so that we put Outlier on the moon.
This is nice. We're going to put this guy right here on the moon. Love it. Scott, I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you all very much.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you all for having me, man. I really appreciate it.